Hello and welcome to the theElpyDimension. I'm your guide, Elpy, and this is mixed worm bin number 2. Now we have an interesting story going on here. So this bin, if you have been following along, you might know that I've been talking about harvesting this bin for at least a couple of months now. And months ago, someone correctly informed me, WD Garden and Worms, that these castings are probably too wet to harvest. And they were right. And so I delayed harvesting, and I've delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed. And as I stir this, I am surprised yet again to see that these castings, hey, Cello's cousin, the cellar spider. Yeah, okay, relocate yourself, please. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So I am surprised to see still how many worms are in here. Did I say? No, I didn't. Today is the 7th of December, 2024. The last time I was in this bin was the 17th of November. So 20 days ago. And guess what? I did not feed the worms 20 days ago. I just came in here and stirred them around. Prior to that, I believe it was the, oh my gosh, I just looked. Okay, the 17th. I think it was the 5th. Yeah, it was the 5th of November. So 12 days prior to that. And that time I actually did feed. I fed a bunch of tomatoes, among other things. Yo, Cello's cousin, what are you doing down there? Interesting that... Oh, I thought this hadn't broken open at all. This is a ground cherry. Hey you. Come on, please. Thank you. Okay. So these kind of look like taco meat, don't they? Like the Taco Bell taco meat. Like the stuff that's really just crumbly. But it's so interesting, and it's gotta, if it was warmer out, these would not stay this wet. I'm certain of it. But I run a dehumidifier on the other side of the basement, and this side is not closed off to that side, but still, and this, I've not had a blanket over this at all, but I've also not been in here stirring regularly. Little tiny bit of a sulfur smell there. So yeah, about a month ago, on the 5th of November, I went ahead and, man, there's so many worms over here. Which I'm not trying to harvest any castings right now because garden season is, well, I've still got some stuff growing out there if you've seen it all in my hoop houses. But I don't need to harvest castings. Okay, so full of worms. On the 17th, 20 days ago, I did harvest a couple handfuls because I needed them. We still had decent weather, and I needed the castings, so I harvested some out and put them in a bucket, and I picked out the worms that were in there. And I did not feed. So you could say maybe the worms are over here because this is obviously just a happier environment, and there's not really food over there anyways. Look at this ground cherry. The seeds are left in it. So yeah, prior to that, on the 5th of November, so over a month ago, I to be exact, that's 32 days ago, I did feed them, but I did what I did before in bin 1, before in this season, in which I I just moved this material, the older material, over so that I could add new material. And by new material, what I did was I added leaves. I also added some plant matter. This is amaranth stalk. It was red when I put it in there. The critters have been eating inside of it. More amaranth stalk. You see leaves. There's some worms in the leaves. These ones on top are dry, which is no surprise. That's a pepper stalk. Got a little bit of just the wet leaf smell. It's pretty wet over here. Now, last time I really mixed things up because the castings at the bottom were mush. So I tried to stir up those castings and get some leaves further down more. You see, there's some worms in the wet leaves, the leaves that are all kind of combined in this older material. So there are, even though we saw a ton of ton of worms over in the old material, we also still see worms over here. That's basically what I'm going to assume, is that there's not enough food source over here for the worms to want to come over and everybody hang out. So the other worms are, if my memory is correct, I've heard that worms can redigest castings up to, that's a pine cone. That's the softest I've ever seen a pine cone. 3 times. So it should come as no surprise then that, wow, this must be some kind of, yeah, it's still wet down there. How wild. This is that piece of pine bark. Or pine, actually. It's not the bark. It was a split tree. It's very wet down there. Oh, yeah. I remember now. So we added the tomatoes 32 days ago. And I put some of my dry mix on, forgetting that since there's diatomaceous earth in my dry mix, and I just prefer to kind of wet that down, and so the worms don't come into contact with just straight dry mix and straight, yeah, a little bit of a swampy smell. So I wound up, I think I added a little bit of moisture and kind of, instead of just pouring it on like I normally would. But still, I'm still blown away 32 days later by how wet this stuff is. And I had avoided adding paper because I've been wanting to move this to harvest. But now the need to move the bin to harvest, I mean, it needs to be harvested because the materials are so old. Or the material is not so old, but it's on the older side. So I still want to keep moving this to, I'll harvest it out and just leave it in a bucket. I'll also use some of the castings, maybe make some worm tea or add it to my house plants. But yeah, wow, this is really wild. So the worms themselves look healthy, the population looks healthy, but the castings are irritating me, to say the least. But today, so here's an interesting thing. So I recently helped a friend out. They had some food donations from their work to take to a local shelter. And when we got to the shelter, not only did they have a tremendous amount of donations, but they were also getting rid of food because they've got to keep the food moving. And so that was interesting to see. And one of the individuals there, awesomely, has worked out a deal with a farmer to where the farmer twice a week comes and picks up their food waste. And it is a tremendous amount of waste. That's an interesting thing to consider, that it looked like, and so the volunteer also agreed, that local stores get a tax write-off for donating food to these nonprofit organizations. However, some of the food, like half of the food they were donating, was already bad. But they still get to write it off, right? Because they're not like writing it off as, hey, we donated, $100 worth of rotten melons. No, they're going to say we donated $100 worth of melons. It's still good that the melons are being repurposed, that they're being passed on, that the farmer feeds them to his pigs, or he composts them. And they said that, hey, they said to me, if you want to take some, because of course we got to talking about gardening, and I mentioned that I have worm farms and compost, and I said, yeah, sure, I'll take some. So we've got moldy bread, as well as a head of lettuce. So that lettuce is going to give a lot of water. What I'm going to do is I am going to tear up some paper. Actually, no, I'm just going to lay it down because I'm making it quick today. All right, hold on. Okay, so what we have here, let's prepare the paper first. Despite my desire to keep this closer to harvest, I'm just going to do what I got to do, and we're going to add this carbon source. So I'm just going to lay whole sheets. I'd never do that. And then we got a couple pieces of cardboard. Well, actually, we're going to wait on the cardboard. We're going to add whole sheets. We're going to push them off to the side. Why? Now, guys, am I going to regret this? Because now that's white bread, but it is, well, first of all, we don't just, bread is bread, but it is from a bakery. Okay, I got a whole loaf of bread here. Oops, sorry. Okay, spread that around. Okay, now, yes, now we have, this is going to be good for them. Again, I thought I tore it open enough to just plop it out of here. Yep, okay, sweet. Okay, now, I might actually want to push we'll put the cardboard down with the bread, because this sucker's gonna just keep juicing out. All right. Yuck. There's our head of lettuce, our 3/4 of a loaf, paper bag and put it around the situation, not 100%. And then we're just going to put it all back. Okay. I am going to continue to leave the left side, the side that's supposed to be finishing. We are going to continue to leave this. I mean, we've got more than, I always wind up having more than half situation. All right, this baby's full. Hopefully the worms will enjoy this treat. We're just gonna put this blanket. Oh, I've got some bubble mailers that I cut. They're not gonna go today. All right, well, that's it for bin number 2. Let me know what you think. It's been 32 days since they've actually had a feeding, and hopefully they enjoy this bread and the paper, the cardboard, and of course the head of lettuce. Yeehaw. All right. I appreciate your time and your interest. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Are you a worm farmer? Would you like to be? Were you? Yeah, just let me know what you think. Thank you so much. Be safe. Be well. Bye for now.